All right, with no further ado, then, one of our all-time favorites. Obviously, he's a digital wall of famer, and that stands for all of time. You know him from Geoff Schwartz is Smarter Than You, from Bear Bets, from Visson. He's doing a live show every week for you. He's excited, no doubt, as a West Coaster for the Victory Bell game. Both home jerseys, SC and UCLA. A great big fat person scored a touchdown over the weekend. I sent him a screen grab of that. Also, our most delicious holiday is just about here. Oh, everything's coming up Schwartz, except for the Chiefs lately. It's Geoff Schwartz. What's happening, fella? How you been?
The Chiefs lost a game. It was the first time.
Okay.
It was the first. How about this, Dave? It was the first time a football team I root for has lost a game since December 25th, 2023.
Woo! Well,
Yeah.
your Dodgers, or your arch nemesis, the Dodgers, they won a World Series. So you and Spaghetti park your cars in the same garage where that's concerned. All right, we have so much to get to here, and
Yes.
we'll turn it around to pro football in just a little bit. But your Ducks are not just number one in the Big Ten, but in all the world, at least among college football teams. How you feeling right now as you get to put your feet up and watch Indiana go into Columbus? I don't know if you know this, but Coach Signetti from Pittsburgh, PA, has
Yeah.
them Hoosiers undefeated. This is
I,
this has never happened
I
before
know. Does
in the football history.
it's not your money. I get it, but that's a big contract. That's a big contract for one season of football. Good for
Hmm.
Signetti. He seems like a great coach. He was interviewing Big Ten Media Day. I mean, full of confidence, and obviously, I'm not sure in his wild imagination he thought this was possible. Like even in his, probably I would imagine like his deepest, darkest thoughts before the season, it was like, yeah, let's win a bowl game. Let's get to a bowl game. Um, I will say this about this game against Ohio State is this is obviously the best team you have played all season. Okay.
Sure.
And when we're seeing teams play their first sort of even matchup of the season, when they're in Indiana or they're in Army this weekend against Notre Dame, or Navy played Notre Dame a few weeks ago, that team loses a lot, Dave. Um, it's a big step up. Now, I will say this though. When you have the coaches Indiana has and how prepared they are each week, you always have a chance to win these games because there are ways to steal possessions. We saw Dan Lanning do it against Ohio State a couple times. There's ways to do like there are ways, and I think that Indiana will be mentally prepared to play Ohio State early. Like it's one of those games to me where very early it's close, and if Ohio State can sort of just maintain their overall talent should eventually take over 60 minutes. But if they get down 7-0 or things start going poorly early on, that gives Indiana a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and at the time of this recording, IU plus 12 heading into the Ohio State game. Um, does it matter how this game plays out if we assume, and I have a couple questions off of this after, but let's say that the Hoosiers lose to the Buckeyes, and they obviously then must beat Purdue no matter what. They can't lose to bum
You're not
Purdue, and then
losing,
it's
you're not
still
losing to Purdue.
okay. Let's just say they have to beat that team. Does it make a difference if they lose 68 to nothing? Is that enough to make him say like, okay, you can't put this team into the
Yes.
12 team playoff? That would
Yeah,
be enough for you.
I think so. Because they haven't played a team that has a vote in the AP poll this right now. They haven't played. And then look, this is not just Indiana thing, right? Colorado has played almost nobody, and they played the bottom, I don't know, 6 of 8 Big 12 teams. Arizona State, same boat, hasn't played anybody. Yeah, of course, there are plenty of teams that haven't played anybody that don't win the games, Dave. They lose the games. And so and they're winning the games by blowing teams out, which is hugely
Mm-hmm.
impressive. They're not just winning by 3 points and 4 points and sneaking by, they're blowing teams out. But the Michigan game I thought was interesting because you could tell how tired Indiana got in the second half of that game. I was watching the film of Indiana's offensive line for the Joe Moore Award. Indiana's offensive line is doing a good job. And you could see in the first drive, the tackles, they're just breathing like you could visibly see how hard they're breathing. I've been in those spots before when you're sort of not supposed to be there, and it's your first time playing like a real defensive line or a real defense, and how you start so fast emotionally, right? And Indiana
Mhm.
started so fast, and we saw sort of Michigan who's been there before, done that before. They don't panic, right? And so I think that's important about controlling your emotions against Ohio State. Um, and look, I think Indiana winning would be the biggest surprise result for me in this game. Um, I think a close game is probably in the works.
Hmm.
But if,
That's
like I said,
semi-encouraging.
I just look, I know it's not always this way in college football, Dave, but a lot of times it is just a talent game, right? Like over 60 minutes, who has the better football players? Um, and Ohio State does. It doesn't mean they're going to win. Of course not. I think
Well, it's
Indiana's
to
coaching
me
advantage is
though.
great.
Obviously, this is in terms of you have all these Husky boys. For I don't mean Washington Huskies either. These plus size fellas
Yeah.
on Ohio State that should be able to lean on Indiana like they have for the last 5 decades and wear them out. But there's something to this sort of flawed offense, sort of gaming the system a little bit. And is there some sort of a K gun effect of like, Jim Kelly, Buffalo Bills? They would
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
tire out defenses. Is there something to the pace that the Hoosiers play at, putting a dent even
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
Ohio State here?
Well, so here's a problem with tempo, I think sometimes, Dave, is that let's say Ohio State scores an opening drive, all right? And you go tempo and you give the ball back in 37 seconds to Ohio State's offense, and they score again.
Hmm.
Now it's 14-0. And you go no huddle again, and now you have a 6 play drive, and you punt again, and you use a minute 37. That's what happened to Chip Kelly's teams a lot at Oregon. And then when they play the LSU's and the
Hmm.
Auburns, is like it's good when it's good, and then as soon as it's not good, your defense on the field way too long. And it was funny. We saw some of that in the NFL game last night where the Chargers and Bengals just went back and forth punting after 30-second drives, and you're like, what? You got to do a little bit more than that, guys. You got to give your defense a little bit of a rest. So that's the only thing with tempo is like it's great till it's not, and it's a fine balance between like I think I like tempo because I think it does really help you against a bigger, Ohio State, offensive, defensive line, tire them out. But again, you got to get first downs, Dave. I'm not even saying you have to score. I mean, you have to score, but like 3 first downs, you're fine. Like you've enough time has gone off the clock where if to punt it back, your field goal, your defense should have recovered. Um, and you mentioned sort of the Ohio State offense, right? It is they want to run the ball, but their offensive line with some injuries right now doesn't do it as well as they have in the past. Indiana's number 8, your defensive tackle. He's really good. Every time I watch him play, it's like this guy shows out. I mean, he's a good
it,
football
it is
player.
a major undercovered aspect.
Yeah,
I get the whole Curtis Rourke thing and Signetti and massive score, 50 points a game and all that, but they are different on defense
yeah,
too, and it is because of right, like you say, right up front there, they actually have some guys that can get after it.
yeah. So, and then of course, look, the thing that I think Oregon did well against Ohio State that is hard to do because not everyone has those corners is you just can't allow explosive pass plays. Like you just have to just play back in zone and say, Jeremiah Smith, you're not beating us. And look, you certainly can. He's incredible. Or Abuka, you can't beat us. So there's a collaborative effort to try to stop Ohio State, but Nebraska did it. It's not like no one can do it. We've seen it done before. So I'm looking forward to the game. There's the Big Ten and SEC feel like they're more parity at the top than usual, but it's sort of the 4 teams in the Big Ten, the 4 teams in the SEC. The Big 12 is so fun right now because every team keeps losing, and Colorado, Arizona State could win out and play each other in the Big 12 championship game. So there's a lot of fun ball this weekend. But Indiana, man, I mean, look, uh, I'm surprised. It's surprising. Again, bowl game, you're like, okay, you win 6 games, like great season. But 11-0, and I will end with this. Again, they haven't played a great schedule, but they're beating the shit out of all these teams, Dave.
It's
Like,
also, but also, it's that's getting to me to be overstated. And obviously, I am digging my heels in because IU is my alma mater, but they're also not, they're playing Big Ten teams and
correct.
annihilating them. Michigan
I
is not a good
agree.
team, and Washington isn't, they're not playoff contenders, but they're not some bum collectives out there that they're whipping like this. And then Nebraska on down the list. It's not the University of Nova Scotia that they're playing. These are Big Ten teams that they're beating. What else are they supposed to do about that? Where the
Agreed.
Big Ten is concerned, then we'll open it up to some other teams in contention for one of those 12 spots. But do I have this right? That first of all, from an Indiana fan perspective, if you assume that they're not going to beat the Buckeyes, you want Oregon and Ohio State to win their last regular season games which they should, because if they were to somehow, if Oregon somehow lost to the Huskies, it would put the Hoosiers into the Big Ten championship game, and that would be their undoing, right? If they lost to
No,
Ohio State
I
and then
think
played Oregon in the title game because Ohio State lost to Michigan, which is plausible. Let's say that happened. Michigan once again beats Ryan Day, and that's a whole story. But then Indiana would have to go play Oregon for the conference title, and Oregon would whip them, and that would be 2 losses, and that would be what the Hoosiers what would cost them a spot in the tournament, right? I mean, so you want them, if they're going to lose to Ohio State for the 1 and 2 in the conference, to win out so that they avoid having to play another tough game, right?
I think I think we're in already. Are we already in with that win this past weekend?
Oh, you're a lock. There's no way you could blow it with okay. Well, that's kind
Well,
of
I take it
actually
back.
I find that
Well, actually, hold it back.
comforting.
I think I saw I actually don't. I thought we were in with a win. Maybe we weren't. The tweet I saw from a beat writer is no longer there, so maybe that's not the case anymore. But I was under the impression that with a win, we had clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship game. Maybe we haven't. I could be incorrect of for that.
Okay,
But
well that actually would be a relief to me. But Penn State, here's the thing, and we'll get to the SEC too. But the other thing that is vexing me is the brand name bias too. And Notre Dame and Penn State, though, what's Penn State done
yeah, I'm
that
not.
would slot them ahead? They've already lost to Ohio State, and even if the Hoosiers lose in Columbus, at least it's a road game. Penn State lost at home to that team. So why would anybody look at things at the end if they're both one-loss teams and say, well, Nittany Lions over the Hoosiers? Do you think that there would be a case to be made? I mean, maybe if they lose by 66, like I say, but short of that happening in Columbus, it would only be brand name bias that would put the Nittany Lions in over the Hoosiers. True?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think Penn State being in the top five is kind of silly.
I mean, they beat Illinois.
And
Great. I mean,
and
Illinois is fine. They're not some world beater.
so did Oregon. It's not. Yeah. Look, Penn State sort of is what they are, Dave. Like they look, and brand name certainly matters in this discussion. Um, they're an 11-win team, 10-11-win team. They can't beat Ohio State. They certainly can't beat good Michigan team. They wouldn't beat Oregon. I think Indiana, Penn State would be a draw. I think right now I'd put it in, if Penn State's at home, they're a 3 to 6 point favorite, probably. I mean, the power rankings might make them a 7 point favorite. That would be too high for me. And they're gonna go and play a playoff game and play SEC team and probably be a 3 point game in either direction. Like they're just an okay team in the scheme but brand name matters a lot. And Indiana's
I
new
wish
to
they
this
would.
party.
I wish they would acknowledge that at least. I feel like they think they're duping me by pretending it's about something other than
Yeah.
that, because it
Uh,
is about the
yeah.
brand. I mean, the U being as high
Yeah.
up as they were until they lost was silliness. They beat
Yeah.
nobody to warrant them being
I
in the
agree.
top 4 or 5.
I did
Right?
some more research, by the way. It does seem like Oregon can lose and not be in the Big Ten championship game. I felt like there were
Hmm.
tweets on Saturday saying it was a lock, but it does feel like if some weird things happen, it's still a possibility. But I think if Ohio State wins, we're in on Saturday. I think that's actually the case there. But nonetheless,
That kind of
um,
makes sense. Yeah. Right.
I would because I think opponent strength of schedule matters and all this stuff. I would look, I would this. I mean, I don't know, it doesn't sound mean, but I would rather play Indiana. I think that just again, like just bodies, right? Like we have better bodies in Indiana. Ohio State can compete with us, in a way that we Indiana just couldn't. And so that would
Oh,
obviously,
listen, if I could just hit the pause button, on the college football season and just stare at this reality for the next couple of years, I'd be fine with it. The Steelers are in first place in their division. They seem semi-legitimate. The Hoosiers are undefeated. Don't touch anything, anybody. Don't break you might break it. The inevitable probably awaits the Hoosiers. It doesn't erase the magical season. I just am resentful of the fact that if they get, they lose by 4 touchdowns to a good team, that then renders the whole thing
I agree.
a bunch of jive where that wouldn't be the standard there. As far as that goes, one more brand name team to talk about, and I mentioned them, is the Irish. I mean, so what's ultimately more important? Is beating a pretty good team or losing to a bad team? Because Notre Dame lost at home to Northern Illinois, so I don't care if
they're the only team in the nation. I'm cutting you off. I got to jump in. They're the only team in the nation with 5 victories versus bowl eligible teams. They haven't played a close game since September. They're top 10 in over 10 different categories. Like Marcus
you remember
Freeman.
Eddie Spaghetti, right?
Dave, Notre Dame would boat race the Hoosiers. They would not even be in close game.
They lost to Northern Illinois. How can you assert that with any confidence?
And then your team can't beat the Buckeyes. And your team can't beat anyone that's good. Notre Dame beat A&M. They beat Louisville. They beat Navy. They will beat Army. They will beat USC.
Well, that's the question. That's the question.
They beat Georgia Tech. They play better. They have a better schedule. If Alabama lost to Mercer, I'm not saying Alabama had a bad season. It's a mental lapse.
You guys are in. What are you so angry about? You're going to be the playoff team.
Because every week Dave brings up Notre Dame, and Indiana hasn't played. They play community colleges.
I mean, that's a wild remark. They just beat the defending national champs, who I don't hold up as a top 25 team.
And then you can't beat Ohio State. You can't beat the big bad Buckeyes. You won't beat the big bad Buckeyes, so it doesn't matter. So I'd rather a team slip up and have a trap game and they beat all their ranked opponents or their bowl eligible opponents. You guys can't beat the toughest game on your schedule. So your team to me is irrelevant.
Even know the game hasn't been played yet.
You're going to lose by 3 touchdowns.
I did not expect this Notre Dame. They're going to be a playoff team. What's the fury?
Well, I agree with you, Jeff. It's Dave every week that brings up the Irish, and the Irish are blowing teams out.
Yeah, but they're boring to watch.
I mean, well, that's the question.
I mean, Oregon should have lost to Wisconsin too. We want to go down that path.
Here's the question, though, Schwartz.
Those last two possessions that Dan Lanning let the team do was indespicable. So I mean, whatever.
That's the question, Schwartz. Does it matter more? So the Hoosiers will have played a ranked team once. So if they lose on the road to mighty Ohio State, does that it's a funny bit of math then that's applied that is more damning than losing at home to Northern Illinois, who, by the way, Northern Illinois isn't like some rando team that's like, they're pretty good. They're like 500 in their bum conference. So it's a weird sort of standard that exists there. So let's assume I agree with you that Notre Dame at this rate, unless they slip up, but I don't anticipate they will. But so they go, and then a group of 5 team goes. So what does that leave then when you break up Big Ten and SEC? 4 Big Ten? If things play out the way you anticipate that they would, which is that Penn State wins out, Indiana loses to Ohio State wins, and then Buckeyes and Ducks play.
Well, you're gonna have. So I'm just doing the math right now. You're gonna end up having, let's say, 4 Big Ten, 4 SEC, 1 Big 12, and then 1 ACC, and then Notre Dame and the G5. That's 12. Right. You're not getting two Big Ten. You're not getting 2 Big 12 teams in. That's not happening. Maybe 1 ACC team, maybe 2. I mean, it's possible Clemson beats Miami and Miami gets in as a 2-loss team, but it's certainly possible there. And then Notre Dame and the G5 winner, which will probably be Boise at this rate.
So is there a team that's right now slotted in that 12 teams as we see it that is not going to wind up making it? Because to me, my ongoing argument is this season, more than the brand name thing, is that the SEC just so happens to be, and you can write it off as parity, but the parity is that they're all B+ teams this year, B pluses. Tennessee, I mean, I get that Georgia has been mighty in the last half decade. That doesn't mean that they're mighty this season, and neither is Tennessee, and neither is Bama, and neither is Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And and here's the other one. Here's the big win for Notre Dame that you can point to is against A&M, but it's like, all right, A&M's fine. They're not they're going to wind up with 3 losses too, assuming they lose to Texas. So, and then Texas is like, yeah, they're good. They doubled up Arkansas this weekend. big deal.
So, I mean, if we're talking like nuclear scenarios, right? Like just crazy. Like if A&M beats Texas, let's say A&M wins the last 2 games, they're 10-2. Texas is 10-2, having lost to Georgia and A&M, and Texas will have, I believe, basically they have ranked wins per se because like they beat Michigan, Oklahoma, but they're not, those teams aren't ranked anymore. A&M could certainly jump over Texas and be in, and Texas is out. That's certainly a possibility. The trio, the quad of SEC teams doesn't really. A&M, Texas has the toughest game left, right? Because Bama has no one left really. Georgia's played their tough games. Ole Miss has played the tough. Florida this weekend is kind of tricky, I think, with Lackway playing better right now. So the only one that's out of those 4 that has a chance, I think, to get out is Texas if they lose to A&M. Again, Miami, Clemson, SMU, kind of winner of the ACC, ends up winning that slot. So it does feel like we pretty much have the teams penciled in right now that are going to end up in the playoff.
Yeah, it's funny because that's basically, as you look it over, you're like, I can get myself worked up into a lather, and it's like it kind of is, unless there's some major surprise coming our way, which obviously stands as a realistic possibility. I think you can kind of identify who those teams are going to be. I just am, like I say, it's just the ongoing extend. Alabama would have to hang itself another time or 2 for them to be ruled out of this thing, and it's like, okay, they beat Georgia. Georgia's fine. Georgia's not the Georgia that they were last year, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. It's all just predicated on past deeds that were and then ranked out. That this whole conversation starts for me with me texting you by saying, "What does Indiana have to do? How many losses?" You're like, they can only take 1 loss because they're not going to have quality opponents. But it's like quality opponents are based on preseason rankings that. Elevate teams to places that they don't belong in reality. Michigan had no business being ranked. USC had no business being ranked. That's where it all starts.
So if Indiana's 5 right now, which they're going to probably be 5 again, there's going to be no changes really, right? No one in the top 12 lost this past week. I guess Tennessee lost, so they go down. For Indiana to be out after 1 loss, they'd have to fall, 6, 7 spots, which it just feels unlikely to go behind. They'll move Georgia up probably to number. They probably move Georgia to 6. They'll probably put Georgia and Notre Dame, I would think, this weekend.
Okay, but again, Texas. What has Texas done?
I agree.
That would elevate them to a place where it's like, well, they'd have to lose. Whereas Indiana, so Texas got whipped pretty good by Georgia, who we've established is good, not a spectacular juggernaut of a team. If Indiana gets whipped at Ohio State, I don't care if it's 100. Well, okay, if it's 103-0, that would be embarrassing to put them in the playoff. But whatever the result, okay, everybody else is able, as Spaghetti says, like, well, they slipped up against Northern Illinois, and Texas slipped up against Georgia. Okay, Indiana slipped up against. If you erase the brand name, then you would excuse it on the same level. It's only because you say like, well, the Hoosiers are like, well, they're not. They're Indiana. Like, what are we talking about?
This is sort of the thing about the playoffs and awards and whatnot. Like, it typically takes a year to get in, and then you're sort of in the club. And Indiana is not in that club quite yet. I think Oregon, Indiana next season. Who would have thought that would be like
fun,
like a monster? We owe you guys for 2004. We get Indiana at home next season too. Oh boy, I might have to fly out to Eugene for that one.
All right, maybe I'll meet you there for that one.
It is so funny how schedules work. Like next year, our schedule looks pretty nice. It's crazy how you miss. We no Ohio State next year, no Michigan. Going to go to Penn State.
Gabriel in his 27th season.
No, we'll have Dante Moore by then. You got to play that whatever Northwestern plays in now. Got to go to Iowa, which is I don't know what Iowa is. Rutgers. I'm probably gonna go to Rutgers. I'll probably just fly out from Charlotte. That'd be so much fun. Just a 2-hour trip to watch Oregon play. You can never do it previously.
All right, let's turn the page because I do want to talk about your pro football team.
Yes.
Although I don't know if the Chiefs really even count as your team as much as you now love the Lions. It started with Penei Sewell, but now you love the entire operation up there in Detroit. And in fact, you did sign the dotted line with the Lions way back when. Let's talk Chiefs, though. Concern level because of the offensive line and the pass catching weapons. I think the second, the latter is less of a concern. Pacheco's on his way back. I think Nuke will find his way and all the rest of it. But the offensive line in that conference with some of the edge rushers that they'll have to probably go through in January. How say you on this? Because it is a legit, I think, an issue.
Didn't we do this last year? The same conversation.
I am not. My concern level with the Kansas City Chiefs is very low.
That's my thing about this. Like it's crazy because they're 9-1 and still have the 1 seed. Like, and they schedule's easier than Buffalo's the last part of the season. And they're 3 up on Baltimore with the tiebreaker. The one game that I thought was like a LOL. This game might not matter, and we joked about the Netflix game. But Chiefs Steelers Christmas Day in Pittsburgh on Netflix could be for the 1 seed, which I owe Mike Tomlin. I know he probably pays attention to what I say about him. A huge apology, Dave, because I don't know, man. I don't know how you guys keep doing it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, Russell Wilson does the offense is 3 things, and it's run the football, it's play action pass, move the pocket, and it's throw go routes. 3 things. That's it. It's not like a complicated thing they're doing. Hey, Pickens, go run faster than the guy. Austin, just go run faster. Washington, you're big and tall. Like, go run the middle of the field. We'll throw you the ball. No one can stop it.
Well, it is remarkable that Russell Wilson, for the first time in his life, is targeting a tight end over the middle of the field. Finally being, 6'7" or whatever Darnell Washington is, I guess, sufficiently tall enough for Russell Wilson to see him. But really, things, because they have to devote so much attention on either side, outside the hashes, it really does open up the middle of the field for Russ there. I remain skeptical. I talked to Mina Kimes the other day, and we agree, how sustainable are moon balls from Russell Wilson, especially against better teams. The thing that stands out to me that's weird is they really are the thing that, I've been pointing at for a few years now is the intent is to beat the hell out of teams. They're not going to be able to keep up with Mahomes and with Allen and otherwise. So they're just going to try to manhandle you. They're kind of there with the youngsters, with Zach Frazier and McCormick and now Sayamalu and our pal Dan Moore and Broderick Jones. I mean, when running the ball, really can beat the hell out of you. It is weird, though, that the same human being who's good at leaning on people when it's a run play can't do it in pass protection. That's a problem because the Ravens have no pass rush, and yet they were heating up Russ all day on Sunday, right? Did you notice that?
It's hard to pass protect, man. That's just hard, and that's the point. And when you're young, it's even more difficult. And so, I haven't been impressed with the rushing the ball the last couple of weeks. But you mentioned like who on the schedule can stop this offense. Well, you play the Browns in the next couple of weeks. The Browns defense is terrible. The Bengals defense is terrible.
This is, please. I know the Steelers better than you. Trust me, this game in Cleveland is the kind of game that they go out and lose. It really, this is the one.
Yeah, it's
the kryptonite for Tomlin's great reign has been losing to bum teams that they have no business being out there with.
Correct. This is Mike Tomlin is an underdog. I didn't want to take the Steelers, but I took them +3. I'm not a dummy. I'll take the money. And when they host Arizona and they're 8-point favorite, that's when the game they always lose. It's like it never without fail. And you're right. They're going to go in a short week. The Browns are bad though, Dave. I mean, Winston gave them like a bump for 1 week and they've gone back to being a poo team. So what are you favored by probably in this game? 4? I haven't even looked yet.
I haven't even looked at the number yet.
4. It's open 4.5. It's 3.5 now. So I would imagine it gets a 3. A lot of sharps will take Cleveland on a short week, but
okay. So Steelers, I do disagree with you that the Steelers they still go to Philly. They have to play the Bengals twice yet. They still host your Chiefs. They still have the Ravens in Baltimore. So I'm not, if they did win out, if the Steelers were to win out, which they won't, they would be the number one seed. Here in reality, the Bills still play the Niners. They go at the Rams, and then right after that at the Lions. That's actually their next 3 weeks. So that's a pretty rugged stretch that they have. I disagree with you though, I thought that the Chiefs had the 1 seed all locked up and they would take care of the Bills and they would have it finished up and they could put their feet up and start thinking about January, but they still play the Chargers in KC. They still play Houston, that game at Pittsburgh and at Denver. If nothing else, I would bet that Mahomes and company would obviously would prefer for the game in Denver at least, and maybe even the game in Pittsburgh, to not have a ton of import for them. But now they're going to have to show up and play these games because they lost that Bills game, right? It kind of changes their approach for the next 6 weeks.
The Bills game would have given them a 3-game lead and a tiebreaker, so they would have. Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, the reason why the bye is important for the Chiefs in the playoffs is not for home field advantage, in my opinion. It's to give Travis Kelce and Chris Jones a week off. It's to give everyone a week off. Like that's more important than home field advantage. And we saw that last year. They took off week 18 and look how fresh Travis Kelce played great in that game and then really played great again against the 49ers. He needs the rest. Those guys need the rest. So that's why the 1 seed is so important for them. It's home field advantage is great. They would love it. But it's just a matter of getting that rest. And look, again, they'll lose 1 or 2 more games. It's the NFL. It's hard. The Chargers coming to Arrowhead. That's the Chargers, man. They don't win those games. Even though it's funny that they have in the past, which is like that kryptonite for the Chiefs sometimes is the Chargers. Week 18 Broncos might not matter. The Texans are something's just, they're not quite what we thought they'd be. So look, I'm not terribly concerned. I don't think right now. The second cornerback worries me. The pass rush a little bit, but Amenity comes back soon. The offense will be fine. I'm not that terribly concerned.
Well, every team is, in case you haven't noticed, followers of other 31 teams are flawed too. The thing that people get distracted by is in a vacuum, they start to look at the Chiefs and say, this isn't the best addition that we've had during the Mahomes era. And that's true. I still am going to bet on 15, but I do think that one game on Sunday did shake me up a little bit and say, at minimum, they now have to go out and try hard where they legitimately probably didn't have to. If they beat Buffalo, they probably can take it easy on the older vets who they're leaning on. Okay, the Ravens, I've been saying this all year, literally, the calendar year. They have problems on pass defense. I don't love their offensive line in general. I don't think they lost to Pittsburgh because of either one of those things, though, which was pretty remarkable. The Justin Tucker thing has now gone on long enough. And here's a wild question for you. If you're the Baltimore Ravens and you see where you are and you want to cash in on the Lamar Jackson in his prime thing and all that, do you think about maybe we should move on from Justin Tucker? Remember, they brought him in. They drafted him because Billy Cundiff screwed up and this launched this glorious Ravens era. But do you now maybe have to say, the guy's just not getting it done, and it's been all season?
I would say I'd worry about the pass defense more than Justin Tucker right now. I mean, Tucker, he's not making the kicks. You hope in the postseason it is. It's funny, he tried to mess with the Chiefs, right? He kicked helmets out of the way and was kind of a dick about it, and he's made half his kicks since then. So maybe there's some karma there for no reason, messing with the Chiefs warm-ups. No, they have other problems. They don't run the ball when they should. Happened again yesterday. Derrick Henry got no touches in the fourth quarter, I believe, which is insane to me. It was a one-score game. You can still hand the ball off. Lamar is 4-12. Nick Wright's stat, 4-12 against the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the playoffs, which obviously some of those games have been combined there. But the kryptonite is those situations. Doesn't play as well in those games.
I mean, listen, it's Atlanta Braves starting pitchers. Making hay in July against mediocre teams is not the same as doing it against the best teams when the games matter a little bit more. All right, listen, Schwartz, speaking of the games mattering a little bit more, I hope that maybe there will be some occasion for us to have a conversation in front of the Big Ten championship game. I like,
Hey,
I'm not going to bother you. I'm not going to
if
bother you
Indiana
with it
wins
if
this
it's Ohio
weekend.
State.
If Indiana wins this weekend, I will come back on the show. We will do a full. I'll set aside an hour because 30 minutes never cuts it for us. I'll do an hour and we will break down every freaking player you would like. Indiana, Oregon.
Oh, I was going to have you rank Thanksgiving pies, but we spent too much time talking pigskin here. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
Geoff
buddy.
Schwartz is smarter than you. All the rest of it, track him down. He's as good as it gets in the business. He makes our show better every time he comes on. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you,
Have
buddy.
a great
Take
holiday
care.
season,
You
Pally.
too, buddy. Take care. Thank you.